This is our first episode without a guest in a long time.
It's been a while. Yeah,
Yeah,
we've been busy.
yeah.
Pretty busy.
I'm Miranda.
I'm Shivani. And
Episode 52, right?
yes. No,
Yes.
51.
51? I thought the
No,
last episode was
you're
52.
right. It's
Yeah,
52.
episode 52 of Far From Normal.
Far from
Welcome
normal.
back, guys.
Woo.
Yay. Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit about mental health because we were brainstorming about what to talk about, and I wouldn't call myself an expert in mental health, but I definitely have some experience. I did a mental health first aid class, and I am on the mental health first aid team at Butler. I am also anxious and depressed. Well, I'm not as depressed as I used to be, but I am diagnosed with anxiety and I take antidepressants. So I have some expertise there.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you. So I remember you telling me about this like mental aid like first aid class, and I think I like made you like send me the video of like
Yes, I sent you I took an audio clip and sent it to you. Yeah.
yeah, that was like really helpful. I don't think I finished the entire thing because I just like got like distracted with
Yeah.
other stuff. But like yeah, what do you remember that was like most memorable about it?
I definitely like going into it, I wasn't expecting to learn a lot. I was
Mm.
like, I've been here, I've done it, I mental health,
Mhm.
Um and I think the biggest thing for me that I needed to understand, I needed to learn, was that you have to actually put yourself first a little bit.
When you're helping someone?
Yeah.
Mm.
Like
That's a good
when you
point.
tell people stuff, when you're helping someone, like say I see someone going through a depressive episode,
Mhm.
I acknowledge that I'm mental health first aid, and
Mhm.
I basically am like, do you need to talk? Do you need, like, what resources do you need? You ask them what they need as opposed to trying to provide it for them. And then you suggest a third party to go to. So like
Mm.
you suggest a therapist. And you don't make yourself their the place that they always go to. You know,
Got it.
you give them somewhere healthy to go to. Which I've used in like life. Obviously I've
Mhm.
used it a little less since it's been a while since I took the mental health first aid, and sometimes I forget
Mhm.
because I am a relatively empathetic person and I want to try to fix what's going on.
Right.
And in practice, it's been good and bad. One of our friends came over like a week after it, and it worked really well. We had a good conversation flow. We talked about the concept of therapy, all that. And then when I went to Butler,
Mhm.
it was a little different because some of the people in my life at Butler don't know what to do to help themselves, so they couldn't tell me how to help them.
Mm.
And so I would try to I would revert back to the stage of doing what I can to help them instead of providing whatever they need, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know when the first time you told me this, it was just kind of confusing to me because at least the people that I've like encountered who are like dealing with things,
Mhm.
like they will almost like ask you in like a non-direct way to like figure out what's going on with them. And it's just like they they like want you to figure it out. It's not like
Yeah.
they don't want you to like tell them to go to someone else. Like they want you to help them, but they're almost like kind of I don't want to say like selfish about it. They're just like not clear about it.
Yeah.
So
It's
like
hard. It feels like you're being like fake. Like you're like,
yeah,
well,
that's what I
let's
thought.
talk about the concept of therapy, and like you're sending them in a different direction. But it's
Yeah.
also, and I mean it does come across that way. But I do think it's going to be sending them in the best direction they can be in because you're not an
Mm.
expert.
Yeah, for sure.
You don't have enough like mental health expertise, or you can't protect yourself enough to help them. But yeah, it is scary because you're like, have you ever considered going to a therapist? It's like sounds like fake, and you're like, your mental health is so bad that I can't help you. So go talk to a therapist. Like it does sound
Yeah.
weird, but
Yeah. I
I
totally understand how it'd be like the best way to go about it
yeah,
though. Yeah, and it's kind of sad though cuz like I know a lot of people have had like bad experiences with like therapists and like or like, you know, like the national like suicide hotline and stuff
You
like
know
that.
someone who has bad experience with the suicide
Okay, well,
hotline?
I don't know them personally, but TikToks, a lot of people have been like put on hold for like over like an hour.
Really?
Yeah, and so like apparently they're just not doing well.
It's
I think they're just understaffed,
yeah.
but
They
like,
also have a texting hotline.
I don't know. I've never personally used it. Have you?
I have not used it, but I would. I'm just gonna mention it for people. Um, all you do is you just text 741-741, and you text home to them, and like they just like that's a good resource because a lot of people don't want to talk on the phone. They just want to text it out.
Right.
I've never used it, but I've considered using it for my friends before, like
Mm.
texting it and figuring out, getting advice on how to help them, or
Ah,
like when they're in really suicidal spots, being like, my friend needs help,
mhm.
which I know my friend would like kill me for telling someone else, and like, you know,
Yeah.
but at a point you just got to do it for them, even if it risks like your friendship or whatever. But
Right.
yeah,
That makes sense. I mean, have you been in any of those situations where like you're trying to help someone out of like suicidal thoughts?
I definitely like suicidal thoughts. I don't know about actions.
Mm.
Um, but I've definitely had friends who have suicidal thoughts that I've tried to help with it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Got you.
I I remember like last year, one of my friends told me that someone else like did something like suicidal esque action, and
Hmm.
like, yeah, it's scary because I don't know how to help people, but
Right.
there's not much I can do either. Like except for like be there for them, suggest a helpful resource because they need to actually get real help. Um,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I've always go like sort of blank because like I feel like I've researched like enough mental health like just in the past, but like whenever I'm actually like dealing with like
Mhm.
someone in real life, it's just like I forget everything. And like for
Yeah.
some reason, the methods that I was thinking of before just don't seem to work.
Right.
But it's a scary time, and yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. We definitely could use some more research and more people to help, and just
Yeah.
in general, we should have like a better education about like mental health and how to
Yes. That
how
I've
to deal with that.
always because I'm going into nonprofit work.
Hmm.
I've always wanted to like start a program at schools
Hmm.
that educates the teachers on like mental health
Right.
stuff. I know someone when I went to ISU summer camp
Hmm.
who was a choir teacher, and she had no experience with mental health.
Mm.
Someone was having a panic attack and she tried to hug them, and then she sent them to the nurse's office, which,
Hmm.
I mean, she did the best she could, but obviously physical touch or sending them in a overwhelming situation aren't the best ways to handle panic attacks.
Right.
But our faculty isn't educated at all.
Hmm.
Like, the only education they have is personal experience. And we need to have some sort of like mental health 101 like class for faculty.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
anyway, I digress.
Yeah, no, I totally agree because yeah, they don't know what to do, and it's just as important as like learning CPR and like
Yeah.
it should be like a part of our system and
Yeah.
normalized.
Especially in this like day and age because like everyone has mental health issues.
Oh yeah, especially with the pandemic, it's just like
Hmm.
increased
Yeah.
everything.
And the generation, like our generation slash the generation under us,
Hmm.
like we talk about it. We like admit that, like, I'm on TikTok, and a lot of people I follow are like, my mental health is bad. Like there's a song that's like, I woke up today feeling like a bag of shit. And that's like like, I don't know. But
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely noticed that. And sometimes it can just be like kind of overwhelming for me. It's
mhm,
just like everyone in our generation is just so sad and depressed and anxious. And it's like it's
yeah.
not their fault, but it's just like, you know, really overwhelming. It's just like
Yeah.
it's hard to find like, a reason to be hopeful cuz like everyone you're surrounded by
It
with
is.
is just not in a good place. And
Yeah.
I guess that just shows like, how much we need to change and how much we need to, how much work
Acknowledge
we
it
need to
and
do.
work on it. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
But yeah, it's definitely been Yeah, I personally haven't had any terrible experiences with
Hmm.
like mental health. Of course, I've had my days, but like, yeah, and
Yeah.
it's hard.
I know you've expressed like some sort of feelings of anxiety to me.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I feel like the pandemic kind of did that also, just because I've been like away from people for so long. So
Hmm.
like, I feel like I sort of like developed sort of like a social anxiety sort of thing.
That's
But
fair.
like, don't self-diagnose. Like I mean, it can be good sometimes, but also not most of the times it isn't.
Yeah.
So be careful with that. But
Yeah, I think the thing with self-diagnosis is like if it turns into like spiraling really fast.
mm,
At least personally. I did self-diagnose myself with anxiety, which actually ended up working out okay. Um, but I've also tried to self-diagnose myself with personality disorders, um,
mm,
like bipolar disorder, or not bipolar, borderline personality disorder, which I do not have. But when I think about some of the symptoms, I do express some of the symptoms. Like I put people on pedestals, and I have high expectations. That like if someone lets me down, I kind of hate them for a short period of time. But I don't do a lot of the other things. But I focus on the symptoms I do have, and then it just comes me to like start looking up other things and spiral down the mental health web and just think that I was had so many issues. But
yeah. No, I totally understand that. Internet
mhm,
can be a great place, but also it can be a terrible place.
mhm,
And it's very easy to be like misled and
yeah,
misdirected. I mean, you could do the same thing with like just any like physical like illness. Like I've done that before with like, do I have cancer? Because I have like these like five different like symptoms, like out of
yeah,
like 10 of them. I'm like, I obviously don't have cancer, but like, it's scary.
yeah. I do think one of the perk of self-diagnosis, like if you go into it in a healthy way and you like hold, I don't know, like have a like line that you don't want to cross, it can be okay because you can at least understand yourself more and try to work on things.
Mhm.
But you definitely need to have that line that you don't cross so that you don't spiral. Because like when I was researching anxiety, I got some help on, different tips to deal with paranoia or different coping mechanisms.
Mhm.
I researched the anxiety medication, and that was good, but I could only do it for like an hour or else I would just like get depressed.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
and I found like the anxiety community. Like, I mean, the community is huge, first of all, but I found other people who are anxious, and I recognize that it's not just me. Like on, I don't know, I was reading an article, and they said that trying medication isn't a bad thing, and having medication your entire life isn't a bad thing because we don't judge people for having to wear glasses to help them see. So why should we judge people for having to use anxiety meds to help them live better? Which I thought was helpful because before that, I was closed off to anxiety meds and I didn't want to have to rely on something, but having the community helps me. So,
Got you.
yeah. Sorry, that was a long tangent, but I wanted to
No, it
share it.
made sense. It made sense. So like, what you've been to doing therapy for a little bit.
Yeah.
What are your experiences with that?
Very different every semester.
Mm,
I'm doing it through Butler, which is free, which is really nice, but we do have different therapists every semester because they're free. So the first semester I did an individual therapist, and I was in a place where I had anxiety about my own anxiety. So I felt uncomfortable and awkward talking to her about it. And I felt like I could do all the things I was doing in therapy in my bedroom, inspire, because I was just talking about things that are happening in my life, which I could felt like I could reflect on my own.
mhm.
But then second semester, I did group therapy, which I really enjoyed because it felt like I wasn't alone, and I felt like I could kind of help people, which made me feel more secure in myself. Kind of like kind of like it's it's like a pattern where like if you do something over and over again, you feel better about the other things, which is one of the OCD symptoms. But that helping people made me feel better because I felt like I mattered. Um, and also people gave me advice, which is what I really wanted at the point. I wanted advice and I wanted someone to tell me how to get better. And then COVID hit, and I started researching anxiety meds, and I also started actually helping myself, not relying on other people to help me, but focusing on my own mental health, putting myself first. And then when I went back to Butler, I did therapy, group therapy again, and I didn't like that semester as much. I didn't feel like I had a value in the group therapy. Um, like things I said didn't seem to matter. And then second semester, I liked it a little bit more, but I felt like I was putting other people first a lot. Like I didn't talk about my own problems as much as I listened to other people, which is a good thing, obviously, helping people. But I also not sure if I need individual so that I can talk about my own stuff. That was a long-winded answer, but um, I, I also know people who've
Mhm.
done both individual, group, different types of therapy, like physical therapy, music therapy. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's like you bring up just like a good point in general that like the types of therapy and like the people that you're doing therapy with can make a difference, which like at least I've like talked to people who are like, opposed to therapy because they've had like bad experiences with it. And it's just like really sad because like,
yeah.
it's like it's the same thing as like, professors for like classes. Like the subject itself might be like a great subject, but like because you have like the a bad professor for that subject, you might not have as a
Hmm.
good time have as much as a good time.
Yeah.
That makes any sense? But like yeah, that totally makes sense.
I think to people, I try to tell people who have that point of view that there are so many different therapists out there,
Mhm.
and they all do, like, not all of them, but a lot of them work in different ways.
Mhm.
And according to my roommate, who is a psych major, therapists don't, they want to help you and they don't get offended. They don't really care if you don't like how they do it. They will suggest for you someone else,
Right.
like in the blink of an eye, because they want you to get better and they want to provide the best way for you to get better. One of my friends doesn't want to do therapy because she's seen TV shows where like the therapist like gets sexually like active with
Uh,
with the patient.
oh no.
But first of all, that's a huge stigma, and it's not a major, like it's a very very small minority of therapists, and that can happen everywhere.
Mhm.
Like that can, you could have incest, you can have bosses do it, you could have like police, like being scared to go to therapy because of that is a very big defense mechanism, because you could also be scared to go to school because of that. So
Mm.
and then also you can do research into good therapists. So obviously not everyone has to get therapy. I do recommend it kind of for everyone, even if you're in a good mental health space. If you can afford therapy and you have the time frame for it, I think it can help everyone, because even if there's like a small thing in your day, like let's say my parents were fighting about something really small, like they can go talk to a therapist and figure out how to go forward. It would just be the healthier. I don't know, it's really healthy and it's helpful.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've heard similar things from a lot of people who've been in therapy and say it really helps. So, I mean, I don't do therapy myself, so I should probably take that advice. But yeah, no, I agree. I agree. It
Yeah.
can be helpful. And I'm glad that like the stigma is starting to like
Yeah,
what's
push
the word?
hands.
Yes.
Yes. I like I follow some therapists on TikTok and I enjoy,
Mm.
I'm not like, I wouldn't go to them, but I do enjoy their content. Especially the ones who are actually good at it and like actually talk about like self-acceptance and self-worth.
Mhm.
There's some people who are like, I'm a therapist, let's talk about how this is a defense mechanism, which to me I don't like, because that's just gonna make people with like anxiety like spiral about all their defense mechanisms because I've done that. But I do like the people who are like, here's how to love yourself, or here's how to get a therapist. So
Right. Yeah, no, that's like one thing I thought about. Just like, at least I'm not a therapist, but like with friends, like the way you word things and the way you communicate things to like work through problems can
hmm
really make a difference. And I think that works the same way with like psychologists and like
hmm
therapists. Like calling something like a defense mechanism, like, or like, oh, that's a trigger or that's a defense mechanism can make you feel like almost like invalidated or like maybe not human. And it's like, you're not actually like seeing me for who I am.
right,
So like,
yeah,
yeah, it's something I've learned over time. Like that took me so long to understand because I would just say stuff and be like, "Oh, that hurt them. Whoops."
yeah,
Like, but yeah, definitely be sensitive to those things if you care to. But
yeah.
yeah,
I think one thing that you've discussed a lot, and you kind of helped me recognize is that people have to figure things out on their own.
oh yeah,
Yeah. Do I'm gonna give you the space to elaborate on that if you'd like to. I can continue to elaborate on it if you want.
um, I mean, I don't know how well I can elaborate on this, but I mean, there's just like a certain extent where like you did all the things that you could, and doing more might do more harm than good. And so, from that perspective, I think you just need to back away and let the person figure it out on their
Yeah.
own. Like, you really can't do anything because they make the decisions. You can't control their life. Like, you can't make them see something that you can. You can't change anybody. So, like, if you are trying to help them and they refuse to get help, like, you did your best. Like you're gonna have to let them
Mhm.
figure it out, which is sad because some people, I don't know, they may like, yeah, they could get better, but really it's just they don't want to get better, and you
Yeah.
can't do anything about that, which is really hard to like let that person go, but you know
Yeah.
it
It took me
happens.
so long to like recognize because I just want to like provide all the solutions for people, but if they don't want to hear something, they're not going to hear it.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're going to hear what they want to hear.
Hmm.
If I talk to my sister about stuff, mental health stuff, she decides what her solution is
Right.
before I even talk. So like I
Mhm.
just listen to her. Um and that's what you have to do for a lot of people. A
Yeah.
lot of people just decide on their own. You can provide possibilities, but a lot of the time people will make their own decision regardless.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's good to like recognize that because you could be causing harm to yourself.
Mhm.
I know Miranda and I have had experience with that a little bit, but like trying to help of someone who doesn't want help or need help, and it's like not your responsibility to like make sure that like
Yeah.
they're doing okay all the time.
Mhm.
Like that's just gonna send you down the like
Yeah,
out in a really bad mental space.
for sure.
Um, but yeah, do the
It's
best you
so
can
hard
though.
not to like try to make sure like trying to make sure that you are providing the best help you can.
Oh yeah.
Like I want to do whatever I can to make sure people are less anxious, but sometimes they're just gonna be anxious either way,
Hmm.
and there's nothing I can do about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're definitely like I feel like one of the few people I know that actually like cares to help people that much. So like I feel like you're like an exception in a way because a lot of people I know don't want to try.
Hmm.
At least like they're like, "Oh, they have anxiety, so do I." Huh, good luck. You
Same.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah, people make jokes out of it and
I don't like the jokes. I mean, I
it's
get
understandable,
they're
but
defense mechanism jokes, so I get it because I do that. But also, sometimes people make jokes when they don't like because so many people make jokes. People who don't have the issues think that they can also make a joke. Like
right.
we all make in the depressed, anxious community, we all make like suicidal jokes or that's because my anxiety. But then like someone who isn't suicidal is like, I want to die, and you're like, don't say that unless like there's an actual issue we should worry about. So yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing that I've always thought about. It's just like because like the jokes are like, so big and just like in general for
Mhm.
Gen Z, it's just like are people like almost like making like I don't know, self-diagnosing themselves to have like disorders that they don't have. It's just because it's like so normalized to make jokes about like how anxious you are and how depressed you are. It's like
Oh yeah,
it's
they just
because
kind of
it's a
assume.
trend You know, it's like it's trendy to
Yeah.
have like mental illnesses and stuff like that, which
I
I don't know.
that's a hard. I feel like anxiety on the surface, if you diagnose yourself with that, it's not going to hurt too bad because a lot of people do have at least some level of anxiety.
Yeah.
I do think there's an issue if you diagnose yourself with like a personality disorder or something
Mhm.
like severe anxiety or severe depression or something bipolar disorder because well that's going to hurt you mentally
Yeah.
because a lot of people who have those disorders have to really like work on it and try to help themselves. So
Mhm.
you know, if you diagnose yourself, it's gonna require a lot of work, and also the self-diagnosis, like we talked about earlier, leads to a lot of spiraling.
Right.
So if you have some sort of self-esteem issue and you diagnose yourself with a bunch of personality disorders, you might use it to talk about why you think you aren't a good person, which obviously is going to be unhealthy for you. So yeah.
Right. No, yeah, I agree. I don't know. It's social media is interesting
Yeah.
these days.
I kind of self-diagnosed myself with I didn't realize the difference between panic attacks and anxiety attacks for a few
Right.
years. And I said that I was having panic attacks because I assumed that's what my anxiety attacks were. And because everyone I knew who had anxiety has panic attacks. I felt like my anxiety wasn't as important, wasn't as valid as everyone else's anxiety. And even though I was having anxiety attacks and I had other symptoms of anxiety. And then I think we've talked about it on the podcast, I'm not sure, but last December, I had like a real panic attack and I realized this definitely wasn't what I thought it was.
Mhm.
And I had to reevaluate how I've been looking at my anxiety because I obviously wasn't looking at it through a lens to help myself. I was looking at it through a lens to blame blame my brain for some of the bad things I do. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I understand that. Um, blame your brain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like if I don't know, texted a lot, like I double texted, I'd be like, sorry, I'm anxious, which is true,
Mhm.
but to an extent, I mean, it's good use to not assume that's all you and it's not like partially your brain. It is good to realize that sometimes in your anxiety, if you're going to try to help your anxiety. But if you use it as a defense for everything, that's an issue.
I
Like if
gotcha.
I start being a worse friend and I just am like, I'm anxious, that's why I suck as a friend, and then you don't try to actually help your anxiety, fix your anxiety, you just use it as an excuse,
Mm.
then like to you can only use mental health as an excuse so much, you know?
Mm, that's a really good point because I've seen a lot of
Yeah.
people do that, and they just make excuses for their bad behavior when they have all the power to like change it. So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah,
And it's hard to change it. Like it's hard to take that first step. It's hard to acknowledge that you have an issue and go to a therapist. But you can only hurt people so much and not
well, it doesn't
um
give you an excuse to be a bad
yeah,
person. Like you shouldn't intentionally like do stuff to
right.
like hurt.
Yeah.
So I don't know,
Yeah.
but yeah, it took me a long while to understand a lot of things within mental health because I feel like just the way I was brought up, I wasn't really exposed to that much. I mean, both of us
Right.
really, but yeah, it's not something that ever really crossed my mind because I guess no one around me brought it up until I got to
Mhm.
like middle school in the U.S. and I was
Yeah.
like, oh,
A lot of our parents' generation is very if they face a mental health barrier, they tried to fix it and move on and not diagnose it, not acknowledge it,
mhm.
not validate it. Um, yeah. So
Yeah,
it's different.
for sure. And I think they're just thinking through it in the lens of like how they were brought up, because like our issues are very different from what they were
Mhm.
dealing with growing up. Like they were all they thought about really growing up was like, go to school, go to college, get a job, be stable, like, get a house, start a family, blah blah blah. Us, like, maybe like getting a job isn't like on our priority list, and we have like
Yeah.
so many options for like jobs too. Like social
Mhm.
media and technology has changed that so much. So like our issues are like, I feel like so different compared to
Yeah.
like what our parents are dealing with. So they're giving us advice from like an outdated
Mm.
perspective.
That's
And
fair.
so like whenever my parents are like, like I don't understand why like you kids are like so anxious and depressed, like you have everything you need. That's because like that was their only problem growing up. And like that's not our main problem right now. So
Fair point.
I try to look at it from that point. That doesn't mean I don't get annoyed with them, because I do get very annoyed with them when they don't understand, because I'm like, why can't you see it? But like I
Yeah.
understand.
I guess
Like
it's kind of hard because they're living a different life than us too.
absolutely.
Like, I mean, there's parents, like fact teachers sometimes understand it
Mhm.
because they
Exposed
are
to it more.
immersed in our
Right.
culture, our
Ah,
generation. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
But parents are kind of outside of it.
Yeah.
So,
It's interesting though, because they just like send us off to school and they're like, all right, go learn, but like they
oh,
don't know what happens there. Like,
yeah.
ooh, but yeah, that could be another conversation. Like, how about our education system? How can we change that?
Lots of ways.
Lots of ways. It's a good way to end this episode because we are out of time.
Nice. We did
Yeah.
good. That was educational and like important. So I'm
Yeah.
happy with that.
And if you guys like want to, add to this conversation, totally like,
Mhm.
shoot us an email at farfromnormalpodcast2020 at gmail.com. Also on Instagram at farfromnormalpodcast. We also have a Google survey, so you can fill that out and also let us know all your thoughts and comment
Yes.
on all our posts. Yes.
Yes. And the Patreon account,
Patreon
you can
account.
also get special episodes or be a guest or ask us any question you want. We
Mhm.
also have merchandise now. We have some stickers and some bags, which are really cute
Mhm.
that you get just for donating.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, and like and subscribe on
like
YouTube
yes,
and share
leave
this
us
if
a
you want
comment
to.
if you want about the
Yes.
video or
Mhm.
just about life.
Love hearing from you. It's so
Yeah.
fun. Love it. Yeah, so we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you guys. Love you.
Bye. Thank you.